Montreal, the everyday, and the extraordinary. The Elias Macco Show on CJAD 800.
This is the Elias Macco Show on CJAD 800. This is Akil Aline filling in for Elias this morning, and honored to be able to do it. We'll be tackling a number of important issues over the rest of today's episode, such as the recent deaths of teenagers in the Quebec Youth Protection System, what changes need to be made to the system to prevent future tragedies. We'll be talking to a retired former social worker on that very subject. Also, the legalities concerning body cameras on police and the city's new municipal bylaw. We'll be hearing from a criminal defense attorney on that topic. But first, right now, how to make sure your kids are not hurting their backs while going to school. Back to school shopping usually means checking off the essentials: notebooks, pencils, lunchboxes, and of course, a new backpack. But is that backpack actually the right fit for your child? A new release from the Association Chiropractic du Quebec suggests that there are five main things that parents should check to make sure their kids' backs do not get hurt. And to shed some light on that for us, we're going to talk to Dr. Nathalie Godbout, chiropractor. Dr. Godbout, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Akil.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So to begin, as a chiropractor, have you ever treated anyone who is young enough to still be in school? Or maybe I should say, have you ever identified any cases where someone actually injured themselves, injured their backs or any other body part because of the kind of bag they wear to school?
Absolutely. Chiropractors treat children on a regular basis, so therefore having school-age children in our offices is quite normal for most of us. And being either grade school or high school or young adults, kids can definitely get hurt carrying a backpack that's not either the right fit or weighted the right way or adjusted the right way for them. So we've got, as you mentioned, 5 big things we want to look at for backpacks, because it's not just about the looks.
Of course. So what are these 5 rules of the road for choosing your kids' backpacks and how they should wear them too?
The very first one is having the right size of backpack. So your little one in kindergarten is not going to have the same bag as the 4th grade or 6th grade kid. And I know it is tempting to buy a bit bigger bag because those things are expensive and we want to make our money last in this economy. But having a bag that is not the right size for the child is going to predispose them to getting hurt. The thing to look for is having a bag that the body of the bag is going to go from the top of their shoulder all the way to their hip. If they're longer than that, if they're bumping on the kid's bum when they're walking, the bag is too long. If it's too wide, the shoulder straps are going to go off the side. So having appropriate size for the child at that time matters a lot.
Now,
that's one.
Yeah, I completely, look, I'm getting flashbacks hearing you because it's taking me back about a quarter of a century to when I was in high school, because I remember my school's administration sending us this message. I forget if it was through the Daily Bulletin or what, but they said similar things. They said, wear your back with both straps on both shoulders, not with one strap off to look cool. They said, tighten the straps as much as possible to keep the bag riding as high as possible on your back. Don't let it hang too low, which I think you were just alluding to. I think they might even have said to get a backpack, if possible, with an extra strap that clipped across the chest. Is that another one of your rules?
Absolutely. That's still the rule. The straps, we want shoulder straps that are about 2 inches wide, so 5 centimeters for the metric people out there. And the chest strap is something that we don't think about so often, but it really makes a difference in carrying the weight in the right place. Now, if people have the access to that extra strap that goes around the hip, especially with the older kids in high school that have heavier bags or maybe have to carry a computer at school, that is really a bonus to have that weight distributed to your hips. We also want that backpack to be light as possible. So when you buy the backpack empty, it has to be made of lightweight material, because what we're aiming for is to have a weight of about 10% of the kid's body weight. Now, when you have grade school children that may be weighing 50 to 60 pounds, that's not a lot of weight in a bag. So you don't want the bag itself to weigh several pounds.
Right. I see that. This is the Elias Macco Show on CJAD 800. I'm Akil Aline, filling in for Elias this morning, joined by Chiropractor Dr. Nathalie Godbout. We're discussing what kinds of backpacks kids should carry to school with the new rentrée scolaire approaching. And we're also discussing how kids should wear their backpacks in order to safeguard their back health. I'd love to get your thoughts on this issue, so feel free to call or text into our studio at 514-790-0800. Now, Dr. Godbout, is there any possibility that some of this advice has changed somewhat over the years? Because I know in the past, when it comes to other health issues, I think it was maybe back in the 80s, you heard that cholesterol is bad, steer clear of it. And then maybe in the late 90s, you started hearing, well, there's bad cholesterol and there's good cholesterol. So is there any area where some of this advice may have changed over the years, or has it stayed consistent?
Well, it has stayed consistent since we've been looking into this. We know for a fact that the bags have gotten heavier with time because we have more subject, we have more books, etc. Kids are gone the whole day in school. We've been studying the issues. We've got research going back 20, 25 years about the link between backpacks and the back pain in children. We have up to 30% of children that will complain of back pain throughout their courses. That's a lot of kids. That's 1 out of 3. So we know that some of these kids present with pre-existing back pain to start with. That's definitely a factor. There's other causes, and the backpack just becomes an aggravating factor. So we've studied these relationships. I think that before that, it just wasn't studied because, not that we didn't care about our children, but it just wasn't something that people thought about.
Interesting. So, it's interesting. When I went to law school in the States about a decade and a half ago, I was surprised to see some of my fellow students, particularly a lot of the female students, not wearing backpacks at all. Instead, they had bags with wheels and long handles, similar to a suitcase that they pulled behind them on the floor, the way you do in an airport.
That would be amazing. That's a smart way to do it when you have heavy documents to carry, heavy books, and because we're in the same age range, 25 years ago, 30 years ago for me, when I was in school, the notion of having everything on a tablet didn't exist. So you carried 2, 3, 4 different heavy textbooks back and forth to school to be able to follow curriculum. So that became very heavy, very fast. So having something on wheels makes a big difference. With our school age kids, sometimes it's the water bottle, the lunch bag that's going to be added into the backpack. So if we can put that separately or make sure that the water bottle is empty, that's going to make a big difference as well on the weight. Water is pretty heavy.
That's true.
It's an easy check for the backpack.
I'm sorry.
Yes, go.
I was just going to ask very quickly. Do you think that is a recommendation that you might see, that you yourself or that maybe the Association des Chiropractic du Québec might also be willing to put out to the population?
In the documents, I'm sorry, I almost switched in French there. In the documents that we have from the Association Chiropractic du Québec and the Chiropractic Canadian Association, they both suggest to have the water bottles empty, the lunch bag in a separate bag instead of the backpack, looking at compartment in the back to organize the weight so that the heaviest thing is close to the back, weighting the bag of the kids on a regular basis. Those are part of the things that are in our documentation to help parents manage and support their children in carrying those bags. We need to check the bags on a regular basis to go through with the kids and see, okay, is this absolutely necessary? Can we ditch that? Can we have doubles of some of the materials so that they don't have to carry stuff from the school to the house and limit what they have to carry in those bags? Because some of our kids also do sports at night, and they might be carrying extra gym bags.
Yes. So, it sounds like there are a lot of options here. But thank you so much, Dr. Nathalie Godbout, for joining us today to share some of this advice with us.
Well, do not hesitate to consult your local chiropractors. We can always help you guys check the backpacks of your kids and assess them if they're complaining of any discomfort during the school year.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Dr. Nathalie Godbout. Thanks again.
Thanks.
And we actually just got one interesting text on the text line, although the person hasn't identified themselves. This is the funniest topic I've ever heard. Long time ago, kids' backpacks were made out of wood, and we walked 5 miles to school. Too funny. And we're supposed to be elbows up. We'll see about that. But thanks for sharing your thoughts.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away. Debate, interviews, and breaking news. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
This is the Elias Macco Show on CJAD 800 with Akil Aline here filling in for Elias today. Next up, how does Quebec respond now with no trade deal between the U.S. and Canada? In a stunning turn of events, trade negotiations between Canada and the U.S. collapsed over the weekend. Prime Minister Mark Carney pulled his negotiators from the bargaining table, saying the U.S. administration had introduced last-minute unacceptable demands on culture, cause, and sovereignty. As the trade war escalated, President Trump renewed his attacks on Canada, reviving some of his previous remarks about annexation. In response, Carney says Canada will impose tariffs of its own in retaliation against the new 50% U.S. tariffs on some Canadian exports beginning on September 8th. During the negotiations, American officials reportedly raised concerns about some of Quebec's language requirements, putting an issue that is deeply tied to Quebec's identity into the middle of a major economic discussion. Meanwhile, Canada has made it clear that protecting Quebec's French language culture is not something it's prepared to negotiate away for a deal with Washington. So to shed some more light on this issue, we are joined by Christopher Skeete, CAQ M&A for St. Rose, as well as Minister of International Relations and Minister responsible for relations with English-speaking Quebecers. Mr. Skeete, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, according to a number of sources, including the Montreal Gazette, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative has specifically taken aim at Quebec's laws, such as Bill 96 and Bill 109, as major trade barriers facing U.S. exporters. Both laws stiffen the French language charter's rules applying to products sold in Quebec and to things like streaming platforms, TVs, phones, and other connected devices. U.S. officials complain that these rules bog down American companies who are trying to do business in Quebec in too much red tape. Do they have a point? Is there any way that those kinds of policies could maybe be reformed, relaxed to some degree without giving up Quebec's protection of its language and culture? Or are we just saying a hard no to any such thing?
Well, increasingly, countries are realizing that culture is not a commodity like everything else. For instance, Quebec led the charge at UNESCO to recognize what we call la découvrabilité. Découvrabilité means the right for local people to have access to their own content. So, for instance, in Brazil, all these amazing Brazilian soap operas that are being produced in Brazil, well, if you're listening to Netflix, there's no rule or law or requirement to put forward that content being created. And so the result is some kind of homogeneity of American culture in all our cultural products. And I think that really reduces us to an American culture. And increasingly, Brazil is one, Korea is another one, Japan, all these other countries all share the same concern. Do we really want to have that kind of digital hegemony of American content being jammed down our throats? While we appreciate American culture and find it very entertaining, all the things that come out of Hollywood, I think we have to be concerned about how that impacts our culture. Quebec has always fought that fight, and now we're seeing the importance of that and how much it irritates the Americans in that context as well.
So what do you think? I mean, does that really mean that we're just not able to make any concessions in this area? I mean, what if Trump and his administration decide to double down on those demands and keep on pushing that issue? Is this even an area where it's even theoretically possible to say, well, we might make a concession here, a concession there, or is it just totally non-negotiable?
Well, sure, you can decide that culture is not important and we want to be American. I think what makes Canada different from the U.S. in part is our unique culture. What makes Quebec different in North America from Canada and the U.S. is our unique culture. In theory, we can throw that away. Do we want to? And what's the point of being who we are if we can't be who we are? I think these are the kind of questions. And so, yeah, in a trade deal where the Americans are saying, well, you know what? We don't care that instructions for products aren't in French, and we believe that impedes trade. I don't think so. I think There's world products. Globalization has taught us that you can have products that are made in the U.S., made in Europe, and the fact that, we have Swedish instructions in Sweden, it just makes sense. So we believe that culture is not a product like every other thing. It's not a commodity to be traded. It is, in a sense, who we are and what we're trying to be. And I think to make a compromise on that, could we? Sure. Should we? I don't think so.
Now, this is the Elias Mackel Show on CJAD 800. I'm Akil Aline, filling in for Elias this morning. I'm joined by Quebec Minister Christopher Skeete, and we're discussing the whole issue of the collapse of the trade deal between the U.S. and Canada and how it's likely to affect Quebec, how Quebec is responding to it. In addition to the cultural dimension, Minister Skeete, what about Canada's supply management system? That is very important to Canada's agricultural sector, including, maybe especially, here in Quebec. So what is your government's position on that issue? Are you also equally adamant that we keep the supply management system in place as is, or is there any room for some leeway for some concessions in that area as well?
Well, farmers across Canada said that supply management is important, and Quebec is home to 37% of all dairy farmers, all dairy farms in Canada. So, of course, we hold a disproportionate amount of those quotas. But again, do we really want to have industrial 5,000, 10,000, 25,000 cow farms giving us industrial milk? I don't think that that's in our values. That's an area where we think that, I think Canadians like the fact that our milk comes from local, smaller family farms. Do we want to have an industrial model? I don't think Canadians like that idea. And so for us, it was always clear that that was a red line not to be crossed. And we're happy that the federal government defended it in the negotiations. But again, the fundamental question we need to ask ourselves is, does free trade meaning forgetting who you are? Let me give you a sense of what the U.S. was asking for at the table. They said, hey, let's create a fortress North America. So far, so good, right? Let's trade with the U.S. However, you're going to use our trade rules and apply them to your friends. So all the trade deals that we've signed with Korea, Japan, and the Philippines, and now with Europe to try and get closer to them, the U.S. wanted to subcontract its tariffs through Canada, through those arrangements. And then they wanted to charge us a tariff to access their own market. So not only were we supposed to tariff our friends by proxy, we were also supposed to eat a tariff to send to the U.S. We thought that wasn't fair, and I think the federal government was right to say no.
Now, interesting that you mentioned that, Mr. Skeete. It's interesting. We just got a question on our text line from one of our listeners, Peter. He says, I think your guest is making a mistake comparing the Swedish market to Quebec. They're not even close in size. Expecting many U.S. companies to do special labeling for only 9 million people is unrealistic. What say you to that, Minister Skeete?
I think the population of Sweden is about 10 million. So I would say your listener is incorrect.
That's obviously one very straightforward response. I would say though, okay, here's a different difference between the two. Maybe Sweden is one country among many on the European continent, and maybe one major difference between Europe and North America is there is no one country that is such a whale economically that it can set the agenda in the way that the U.S. dominates trade talks here in North America. Do you think that makes any difference to expecting American companies to do special labeling just for the Quebec market?
Great question. Again, factually not true. Germany is the economic powerhouse of Europe, seconded by France. Europe has 27 different languages, and somehow they managed to get it right. And so, in my estimation, the European Union is exactly the way a federation should work. We join together on areas of commonality. We keep what's important for us, but we work together in partnership to make sure that things happen. And so, in that regard, again, I would say each jurisdiction has its strengths, contributes something to the federation, and moves forward, and they've agreed to be together on one thing and work differently on other things. But again, this is an example of a federation that, while not perfect, the European Union is not known for its agility, seems to work very well to respect different countries' way of being and different cultures while learning and working together. So that's an example where I would say Germany in this example represents the U.S., and France would represent Quebec, and the rest of Canada could represent I don't know, the northern states, and so the comparison doesn't fit.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your, I'm sure, very busy schedule to chat with us about this, Minister Skeete. I really do appreciate it.
Anytime, and I know that these are difficult times for Quebecers, and these tariffs are going to hurt. But one thing I would like your listeners to know is that we're going to be there for their businesses, and we're going to be there to help protect their wallets. It's not going to be easy, but I think we have everything it takes to get through this together. So thanks for having me on, and I'll come back anytime you need me. Thanks again,
Minister Skeete. Much appreciated. This is the Elias Mako Show on CJAD 800. I'm Akil Aline, filling in for Elias this morning, and we have a number of topics that we're going to be tackling over the rest of the show. But for now, let's hear about the news here in Quebec and beyond.
This newscast brought to you by Supermarché Acavan, where fresh, hot bread is baked on the spot every day. Freshness you can taste, quality you can trust.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.
The Elias Mako Show. On demand.
On demand. Don't miss a thing.
Find your favorite clips at CJAD800.com and on the free iHeartRadio app.
This is the Elias Mako Show, and I'm Akil Aline here on CJAD 800, filling in for Elias Makos this morning. Honored to be here. Coming up, we're going to be tackling the 60th anniversary of the Montreal Metro. It's turning 60 this year, and we're going to be digging into that with Aref Salem, City Councillor for Norman McLaren and the St. Laurent Borough. But very quickly, before we do, I just wanted to acknowledge some comments that we're getting from our listeners on our text line that I just couldn't help but acknowledge. One texter says, the first thing that Trump did was declare that the USA was English speaking. He has to realize Quebec is predominantly French speaking. American companies must realize that as well. But on the other hand, Robert says culture is not as important as making a deal with the world's largest economy. We are crazy not to be negotiating with them. Absolutely absurd. And Mark from NDG actually says, Akil, enough. You can't eat culture, our unique culture, delusional. So there's a comment as well from a fellow NDG boy of mine. I actually haven't lived there since the 90s, but I'll always be an NDG boy at heart. So thank you to all of you for sharing your thoughts with me. And again, you're always welcome to do so via our text and call-in line 514-790-0800. Now, again, the Montreal Metro turns 60 this year. 6 decades of getting Montrealers to work, to school, to appointments, to concerts, and just about everywhere else across this great city of ours. The system that opened back in 1966 with just 20 stations at the time has grown considerably since then. The Metro has become a crucial part of Montreal's economic and social life. But an anniversary like this is also a chance to look ahead. What should the Metro look like over the next 10, 20, or 60 years? How do we modernize the aging system, improve reliability, expand service while dealing with the cost of maintaining and developing public transit? And what role should the Metro continue to play overall as the city continues to grow? So today we celebrate 60 years of the Montreal Metro while looking at where public transit goes from here. Again, we'll be speaking with Aref Salem, chair of the SDM's board of directors, as well as city councillor for Norman McLaren and the St. Laurent Borough, about his vision for the future of Montreal's transit system. Mr. Salem, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Akil. Thank you.
Yes. So just, very briefly, how do you feel and what is your overall take on this upcoming 60th birthday of the Montreal Metro?
I'm really proud to have this leg from 60 years that we have in our hand right now. It's a leg that it was built by many thousands and thousands of employees, of artists, of architects, with a vision back then with the Mayor Drapeau, who decided to put in place really a great infrastructure in Canada. I would like to just underline that this is it's an only of its kind in Quebec. It's the largest in Canada, and it's a great success story for many, many, many people. Just to give you a number, since 14 October 1966, the beginning of the metro until now, we have 11 billion people that, they use the metro on a day or another. So we have some kind of metro moments for every one of these people.
And so what do you think is the reputation of Montreal's metro system compared to a lot of similar subway systems in other cities, not just here in North America or Canada particularly, but around the world? I ask this, let me just say this up front. I ask this partly because I've lived in the States for a number of years in different American cities, cities like Washington, D.C., New York City, Philadelphia, took the subway in all of them. And it made me appreciate the Montreal Metro in a lot of ways when I came back. So how would you say, based on your position and the information that you have in your position, how does Montreal's Metro stack up against its competitors, so to speak, in other cities?
To compare it with Canada, we're one of the largest infrastructure in Canada, and not one of the largest. We are the largest in Canada. We're transporting close to 800 person every year, traveler every day, not every year. So that makes the metro kind of the narrow bone of the economical, cultural, social, and environment character in Montreal. So it's contribute to the economy, to the cultural life, to many we can't imagine Montreal without the metro today. It comes with its challenges after 60 years for sure, but we're working on the challenges. But now it's time to be proud of our metro and celebrate what's coming for the next months.
This is the Elias Makos Show on CJAD 800. I'm Akil Aline, filling in for Elias this morning. I'm joined by Aref Salem, chair of the board of directors at the STM, and we're discussing the upcoming 60th anniversary of Montreal's metro system, where it's been, where it is now, and where we go from here. I'd love to get your thoughts on this issue, including your experiences riding the metro compared to, especially if you have any experiences riding subway networks in other cities, Toronto, Vancouver, maybe American cities as well, like I've done. If you have experiences and thoughts on that subject, please feel free to reach out to us at our studio. 514-790-0800 is our call and text in line. So, Mr. Salem, what are some of the major challenges that the metro system faces today, and how does the STM plan to tackle them?
We have to maintain our infrastructure. That's the main goal that we're looking into it for the next years to come. And we know we have a lot to do with the federal government and provincial government to make sure we have the money and the fund necessary to maintain this infrastructure. That's why, I invited the 5 leaders of the party during the next election that's coming to come and visit the metro. We want them to see how the asset is today. We want to make sure that they know about the metro, and we know they're going to have a lot of headache with the infrastructure in Quebec in general. But we want to make sure that this economical infrastructure that we have, this cultural infrastructure that we have, we cannot leg it for the new generation, for the next generation in the way that it is now. We have to take care of it. We have to give it a lot of love. And that's why, I invited them to be there, and we're opening the door of the metro so they can come and visit and see by themselves.
It's interesting you say that, because me personally, I remember I spent the first 5 years of my life living in Trinidad and Tobago, and then 2 years in Toronto. And then when I moved to Montreal in 1992, one of the things that struck me the most, other than the transition from English to French, of course, was seeing these metro cars with rubber tires on them. That really blew my mind as a kid, and I often hear other non-Quebecers I know who visit Montreal say the same thing about the metro. But they also talk about how pretty the stations are, how they like the decorations, the art that they see in the various metro stations. So that's another thing that I appreciate about that. Again, listeners, let's hear from you on that subject as well. And Mr. Salem, what do you think can be done to help make that system more accessible, to continue to make the various stations more accessible, particularly to people with mobility issues and things of that nature?
Yes, this is an issue. We had the plan probably for the last decades or so. We had the plan that we transform 32 of our stations into fully accessible for all the people. So now the program, the government stopped the funding And that's something we have to work on to make sure that we can get some extra money and make sure the other station will be accessible the way we have these 32 stations. You know, we have the engineering, we have really the collective intelligence, we have a lot of people, like, you know, involved and devoted for the public transportation in Quebec. So we need at least to use these intelligence and these, like, you know, these brains to make sure that our system will stay efficient, liable, especially for the generation to come.
You know, it's interesting, having lived in other cities like New York City, for example, where I lived for 3 years while I was going to law school there. One thing I had to really adjust to was train traffic. The concept of train traffic was something that took a lot of getting used to for me, because I don't remember ever hearing about train traffic on Montreal's Metro when I grew up. So that's another thing that I appreciate about Montreal's Metro. I know when I lived in Washington, D.C. for a couple of years, there were incidents from time to time on their subway station, which is also, their network is also called the Metro. The occasional fire breaking out on the tracks, that was something I wasn't used to coming from here. So another thing I personally appreciate about the Metro. One thing I'm hearing from one of our listeners on our text line, they say the extension of the blue line to the east as far as Anjou would be a huge plus. What say you about that, Mr. Salem? Do you think that's a possibility?
Absolutely, and we're working on it right now. We have the funding. We closed the funding lately with the government, federal government and provincial government. And the good thing about it, it's like, you know, we're on time, on budget for this project. We are using this project too to make sure we're building at the same time many apartments building near the metro stations. So we're creating this transit-oriented development around the stations, make sure people, they can live around, they can use the public transportation too. And this is something new that didn't exist before. So this is like, you know, at least we're using this funding that's coming to contribute to the public transportation, which is really, I'm really proud of, about it. And you were talking about New York Metro Station or Washington Metro Station. You know, in 2017, we had the Summer of Hell in Montreal, in New York. And the governments, they had to intervene with really a huge program of $50 billion invested in the metro. We don't want to go there. Well, that's why, you know, we're trying to raise a flag and tell the governments that we need the money to make sure we're not going there, and we're going to maintain at least our infrastructure for the years to come.
Okay, Mr. Salem, very quickly, because we're running a bit short on time, but can you just tell us what kinds of observations we're going to see to celebrate Montreal's Metro's 60th birthday? Yeah,
sure. There's a whole program. There is dancing, there is singing, there is so many things. You can go and visit on the STM, the website of the STM, and you can see the whole list. Just to tell our listeners, everything is going to be free. And when there is charge, the money is going to Réchaud-Bus and Centraide au Grand Montréal. So the money that we're collecting, we're giving back to the community. And all the programs that we're having in public is going to be free too. So go and visit the website.
And what exact dates again?
On the 14th of October, we're going to have a big celebration in Berry-UQAM for the day, like, you know, this special day. But between now and the 14th, there is so many things in the city. You can visit the link on the STM website.
Thank you so much, Aref Salem, Chair of the Board of Directors at the STM, for discussing the 60th anniversary of Montreal's Metro with us.
It was a pleasure, Akim.
Absolutely. This is the Elias Mackel Show on CJAD 800. I'm Akil Aline, filling in for Elias this morning. Next up, we'll be tackling recent deaths of teenagers in the Quebec Youth Protections Program. What can be done to change the system to prevent such tragedies in the future? But first...
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll.
We're coming to get you!
One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all.
Bryan Adams Radio.
I'm coming back to you.
Now available on the free iHeartRadio app.
Hey everybody, how are you tonight? Sounds great.
Breaking news. Considered. The Elias Macko Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
This is the Elias Macko Show on CJAD 800. I'm Akil Aline, filling in for Elias this morning and honored to do so. Up next, Recent deaths of teenagers in the Quebec Youth Protection System. What changes need to be made to the system to prevent any future tragedies from happening? The deaths of 3 children connected to Batshaw Youth and Family Centers have raised serious questions about Quebec's youth protection system. It also raises questions about what was happening inside the organization that's responsible for caring for some of the province's most vulnerable young people. Santé Québec has now ordered an independent review looking into the quality, safety, and continuity of youth protection services in the western portion of the island of Montreal. But today we want to go beyond the headlines and take you behind the scenes, find out what it's like to actually work inside the system. So we're going to hear from someone who used to work there, getting her perspective on what happens behind the doors of Batshaw, what works, what doesn't, and what needs to change. We're going to be speaking with Claire Clifton-Newton, retired social worker at Batshaw Youth and Family Centers. Thank you so much for joining us, Claire.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. And yourself?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. So just to begin, in brief, what was it actually like to work inside Batshaw when you were working there? What kinds of challenges did you and your colleagues face?
Well, we were faced with quite a lot of challenges because the system was set up in a way where we, the workers, were supposed to be helping the clients. But in truth and in fact, we, the workers, were being, I would say, abused by the system himself. And it's like asking an abused woman, who husband is abusing her, to treat her children when she herself is not getting the proper care she needs. So it's like giving her a challenge that she cannot really meet up to.
And so what were some of the specific challenges and difficulties that you and your colleagues faced? Was it that the workloads were too heavy? Did you not have enough support from the system in dealing with especially difficult clients? What are we talking about here?
Well, there was a lot of problems with the system in terms of we weren't getting the proper support from the supervisors. We were being abused by the clients. We were constantly asked to take on responsibilities way beyond the normal time. It was not a 9-to-5 job. So you left home in the morning and you never know what time you will return. And in terms of the system, what's happening to the clients who were committing suicide, if you flip that coin, there were also workers who were committing suicide, believe it or not.
Is that so?
And there were also the workers' children who were committing suicide.
Wow.
So people don't know about that. I mean, you're asking the workers, it's like an abused woman. Who do you turn to when the spouse is abusing you? How can you help your own children?
And were you able to turn to anyone? I mean, how responsive were your supervisors and the system as a whole? I assume that you tried to express your concerns about some of these difficulties while you were on the job.
Yes, I did. I mean, personally, I remember in one incident where one of my clients was AWOL for 6 months, and I kept bringing up in supervision. And my supervisor kept saying, no, it's okay. And it went on for 6 months where the child was out and being, I mean, honestly, I think she was under the control of some pimp and nothing was done about it.
Wow. That is very, very heavy. Thank you.
It's serious. I mean, this is the flip side of what was happening to the clients. I mean, we had to undergo so many challenges in the system.
And that can't have been easy for you to deal with. So, thank you for joining us to share that with us. This is the Elias Mako Show on CJAD 800. I'm Akil Aline, filling in for Elias this morning. I'm joined by Claire Clifton-Newton, retired social worker at Batshaw Youth and Family Centers. And we're discussing the recent deaths of teenagers in the Quebec Youth Protection System, what changes need to be made in the system to prevent future tragedies. Whatever you think about this issue, whether you or anyone you know have ever had, whether you've ever had any experience with the youth protection system or anyone you know has, what do you think of these deaths and what should be done to prevent it from happening again? Call or text into our studio at 514-790-0800. So, Claire, what role do you think culture plays in this issue? Because I have to say, I myself grew up around a lot of people right here in Montreal who viewed all social workers with suspicion. I heard over and over again the narrative, social workers just break up families. If a kid makes a false accusation against their parents because they don't like their parents disciplining them, not letting them do whatever they want to do, they'll just make a false complaint and social workers will come in and take them away from their families and so on. I don't know how much truth there was or wasn't behind that, but the attitude was definitely out there. Did you ever encounter that sort of thing in your work?
Yes, that was a big problem because with the Youth Protection Act, which started, I think, in 1991, which is almost 35 years ago, people could just call and file a report against a neighbor who they just had an issue maybe with a fence and report that they were abusing the children. And they didn't have to identify who they were. So anybody could put in an anonymous call and report you because they did not like you.
So, it's, I suppose the final question, because we are approaching the end of this hour, what exact changes would you like to see made to this system based on your experience?
Okay, well, it's twofold. First of all, part of the major problem is McGill School of Social Work. They are the one English institution that train social workers that work at Filmery Batshaw. I started when it was Filmery. It's now Batshaw because Batshaw did a lot of, Mr. Manny Batshaw did a lot in terms of bringing about the Youth Protection Act. So I think part of the changes has to do with the way the reports are made to the Youth Protection Department. Also, the people who are the young workers who don't really have any life experience that are serving the clients, I think the changes, they need to look at that and the constant change of workers in the system where people have to be repeating the stories over and over and over. The clients have to tell a new worker, and this causes a lot of frustration. Also, the clients, a lot of them attack the workers, and a lot of it's based on racism.
I see. Well, thank you so much for addressing this issue with us, Claire. I'm sorry that we couldn't devote more time to it, but we do have limited time. But thank you so much for joining us to shed some light on this issue.
You're very welcome. Anytime you need more help, I'll be available.
Absolutely. We're very grateful. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the Elias Makos Show. This is Akil Aline filling in for Elias Makos this morning. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be addressing a number of issues, such as how the Conseil du Patronat will be reacting to the lack of a trade deal with the U.S., as well as other interesting topics like how young adults view AI and the rise of micro dramas in the entertainment industry. So thank you for tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next hour. And in the meantime, we're going to check out the news.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.